In the process, please indicate whether you are present in the room, present in your annex office, or if you are off-site. So please call the roll, Amy.
Representative Fleming. Representative Flood.
Present off-site home office.
Representative Graham.
Here in the room.
Representative McCool.
Here in the room.
Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Huff. Chair Tipton.
Present in the room. We will dispense of the minutes. We do not have a quorum. So I'm going to have to do some recruiting for a meeting so we can just approve the minutes, one meeting. But we're going to start our presentation this morning. We have two of our great universities here in the state of Kentucky that are here to give us a presentation this morning. Going to start off with Eastern Kentucky University. So President McFadden, please come forward, and whoever you have with you. Please identify yourself for the record, and after you do that, I will swear you in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is good to be with you this morning. Glad to be here with my colleague and friend, Dr. Morgan, two of Kentucky's finest institutions serving Eastern Kentucky, so we are glad to be here. I have with me this morning Mr. Barry Pointer. He is our Senior Vice President for Finance and Administration.
Okay, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Well, please proceed.
Well, it is great to be with you this morning. It is great to be with this committee, and I first and foremost want to start with a thank you. A thanks to this body, to this committee for the work that you have done in the budget that is passed out of the House with what is, I would consider, record-breaking investment in education and specifically higher education. I have been the better part of the last 10 years working at Eastern Kentucky University as we have navigated some challenging times. We've navigated some challenging times as it relates to our state, as it relates to the resources that are available, and we've done so while trying to have a laser focus on access and affordability of higher education here in Kentucky. As you look at kind of the profile of where we stand this year, we are at nearly 14,000 students at Eastern Kentucky University, representing 118 of 120 counties in our student body this year. We are number one for Kentucky undergraduate enrollment, and we are number one for putting Kentuckians back to work in Kentucky communities. That is something we take a great deal of pride in, and something that we feel like we hope is of value to this body and to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Still today, 43% of our undergraduate student population are the first in their family to go to college. That is my story. I am a native Appalachian son who was the first in my family to go to college, and EKU is my alma mater. It was a life-changing, transformative experience, and we continue to do that today for nearly half of our student body. We just finished an economic impact study at EKU. It represented almost $600 million an annual economic impact to our local, regional, and statewide economy. I think sometimes as university presidents, as those who are ambassadors for education, we don't often talk about the economic impact of our institutions. So I want this body to understand that we are here doing our level best every day to power Kentucky's economy and to be responsive to the things that we are trying to do together to grow Kentucky. This year, we were fortunate to see a nearly 10% increase in new student enrollment at Eastern Kentucky University. That's new freshmen, new transfer students. I've not had a chance to cross-reference all of the other institutions, but I do think that this is probably the largest increase of the public institutions for new student enrollment. For this past 10-year period, we've seen a nearly 50% increase in STEM-H degree production. We have been laser focused on our STEM-H degree programs, and we are very thankful of this body as we have as you funded our state-of-the-art science facility nearly 10 years ago. It has made an impact on that degree production to power our communities. We've seen about a 25% increase in underrepresented minority degree awarded over the last 5 years. That has been a big focus for us as we continue to serve our Kentucky communities. We need to make sure that it is representative of our Kentucky communities, and that is something that is top of mind for us as an institution. And if you haven't heard, we launched our Book Smart program a year ago, and that is at Eastern Kentucky University. We are the only public institution in the state and one of very few in the nation where textbooks and materials are completely free for all undergraduate students on campus, online, anywhere. Many will ask, why did we do that? In talking to our students who are 43% first gen, 62% first in their family to go to college, or a low income, high need student, we realized that they were making the choices between buying textbooks, paying rent, buying groceries, putting gas in their car. The pandemic put a very sharp point on the need that our students have, and it made us realize that this is a burden that we could alleviate for them, that we could go out and make this investment and do it better than them, and that on day one, everyone had started the race in the same position. No one was behind. And so that is what we committed to, and we felt like it spoke to the notion of being Kentucky's School of Opportunity. I'm going to transition, Mr. Chair, into a few things that was asked to talk about. I want to start on asset preservation. Here's a real picture of our underground steam system. We have struggled with steam and heat this winter season. We have a campus that largely had a boom of growth over 60 years ago. And much of that infrastructure that's in the ground, in the walls, inside of our facilities has not been touched during that period of time. We have now about $1 billion in total deferred maintenance that is out there for us to need to take care of. And we've got some significant projects that the asset preservation that was funded by this body would invest in over the next biennium. First, focusing on the useful life of our facilities and trying to make sure that the investments that have been made continue to reap benefit. It is not our intention to try to do new construction across our campus. It is our intention to be good stewards of the investment that has been made to make sure that those facilities we have can continue in good working order. HVAC replacements, steam infrastructure upgrades. We've got about $30 million in just steam work that needs to be done, and that is not something that once that work is done that anyone will come to campus and see a difference, but they will surely feel a difference, and that is very important. Plumbing and electrical upgrades, elevator repairs, and roof replacements. So largely, looking at that $1 billion, it is all contained within those core areas of asset preservation for our institution. Alumni Coliseum is a capital project that has been approved by this body as a general fund bond supported project. This facility is the front door to Eastern Kentucky University. Constructed in 1963, it's a regional economic driver for us. We just hosted the All-A Classic, boys and girls, a great week in the city of Richmond where we were hosting Kentucky's smallest schools from across the state, and a lot of excitement in our community. It is also where we do all student orientation. It is where our Student Success Center for our student athletes and for those who are looking for tutoring services resides. And we also have hands-on teaching and laboratory spaces there for our nationally recognized athletic training and sports performance programs. It is also the home of EKU athletics, but I want you to understand this is an institutional investment. We conduct our graduation ceremonies in this space, and it is one that is in desperate need of investment. We have what is affectionately called the Hoosier Walls in this facility, which means there is about a 2.5-foot wall that keeps the crowd away from the floor. About 2 months ago, we had a HVAC failure over the weekend in that facility. We were about 1.5 inches from having that entire facility flooded had it not been for those walls. And so we are doing our level best to invest in that space, but we are very grateful for the investment that the state has prioritized to make in Alumni Coliseum. The other project that is in the budget that we have advocated for some time now is the Model Commonwealth Lab School. It was established in 1906. We have about 700 students there, a 100% graduation rate, and a nearly 100% college going rate. I will tell you that while this will make a strategic impact in the lives and the experience of those students in that space, that is not why the lab school exists. The lab school exists as a laboratory environment for clinical experiences for our pre-service teachers, for our mental health professionals and our school psychologists, for our occupational therapists, for our nursing students. It is a critical part of the clinical experience in a K-12 setting for so many of the degrees that Eastern Kentucky University is known for. And so the investment in this space will allow us to have a safe school, a school that is going to hopefully start to set some standards on how we manage school safety. We are going to be focused on how we develop curriculum, how we serve teachers, and how we hopefully solve some big complex problems from an education perspective in this state, the largest of which is the shortage of teachers that we are facing here in Kentucky. Representative Fleming, we were happy to have you on campus, and I know that the Aviation Caucus has taken a great interest in Kentucky's only four-year flight program at Eastern Kentucky University. It's something we're very proud of, and we are very grateful to this body for the financial investment that has been made in that program over the last several years. We are currently sitting at 330 students, nearly at capacity for the flight program, with 271 pro flight majors, 59 aerospace management and technology majors. We flew almost 16,000 hours this past year. If you look up in and around Madison, Clark, Fayette, Jessamine counties, you're going to probably see a Cessna 172 flying around with that EKU brand on it as we're training the pilots of tomorrow, which for us, looking at what Kentucky what is powering our economy, aerospace and aviation is number one, and we want to continue to be a part of that. A 99% post-graduation employment rate. I think the 1% have just opted to take a little break. It's not for lack of demand. And then we are focused. Our next generation focus is on unmanned aerial systems, and that concentration will be launching in 2022. There is a budget request in here to reauthorize a small portion of the $8 million that was approved by the body 2 years ago. Due to some changes in cost of construction and some other things, we are set to build a new flight training center at the Central Kentucky Regional Airport. It's about $1 million that was already appropriated. It just needs to be reauthorized so that we can put those funds into the construction of the facility versus the operations of the program. I kind of touched on that a little bit. We do have 16 aircraft acquisitions that have happened with that $8 million, and the fleet now stands at 27. We are currently looking to stand up a secondary temporary training facility, and we are working with a couple of different airports kind of in close proximity to the Central Kentucky Regional Airport to make that a possibility. I would encourage and be thankful for the fact that we are fully supportive of the CPE comprehensive budget ask as it relates to asset preservation, performance funding, and the capital investment in our campuses. We are also very thankful for the pension subsidy funds that have been provided to fully fund the pension obligation in KERS for us for the next 2 years. Mr. Pointer has been with the university for 17 years now, serving as our Senior Vice President for Finance and Administration. He can tell you how challenging it has been to manage this pension crisis, and I want to thank everyone here for your thoughtful and committed way in which we've tried to address this and put a sustainable future in place for all those who have a pension and for all those who have yet to come to be a part of our institution. Mr. Chair, I will yield back to you.
Thank you, President McFadden. I would like to touch a little bit about model school. I think if I saw close to 700
Yes.
students. Under the new plan, what will be the capacity of the school for students, and also what's the projection completion date? And while the school is under, I understand you're going to tear down the existing school and rebuild. What is the plan for the school during that transition?
Yeah, so in addressing the overall enrollment, we currently run 2 classes per grade at Model Lab, and I'll be honest, that is not enough of flexibility in the per grade classroom instruction to really bring in what I would consider some really innovative practices that we could test for. So we're going to try to go to 3 grades, 3 classes per grade from P through 12. So this also includes our Burrier pre-K program. So we will be getting everything from our 2-year-olds all the way through our graduating seniors into this facility from a laboratory setting space. So we will probably be somewhere in the 1,100 student range once we're fully operational, which will allow us to then be able to bring some of those what we call specials into each of those grades. Some of the things that are underpinnings to that the education we're putting there is that we're bringing world languages into kindergarten. Students at Model are getting a world language experience in that early stage. We're bringing performing arts and performance opportunities for students into those early grades so they can have those experiences. We're doing coding. My kindergartner is doing coding on a 1-to-1 Apple iPad, and so I think that as we look at where we're going as a state, the economy that we're building, and how Kentucky will compete, that the more that we can try to replicate some of those things that we're doing there, some will work. and some will not. And we understand that we are definitely pushing forward. As far as construction goes, we don't want to be too presumptive, so we have not started full architectural renderings for the facility, but we do have some conceptual drawings as we've scored out the investment in the facility. For those who have been there, Model Lab sits prominently on the corner of the Robert R. Martin bypass and Lancaster Avenue, which is really the entrance to campus. We do have a large green space in which the playground and fields for Model Lab that's in that space. It is currently our intention to do construction on the green space. School will operate normally. During that period of time, we will then proceed with the demolition of the facility once the new facility is up and running.
We have a question from Representative McCool.
Not really a question, Mr. Chair, but just want to make a comment, if I may. I just want to say how proud I am for both of the institutions here today. Actually, I'm an alumni of both of them, and I appreciate, and I know what I'm going to hear in a moment from Morehead, the focus on the success of students, and that is to when you start talking that language, and you not only talk it, you back that up and show how that's happening. I'm just so pleased to hear that still going on today. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members have questions? Well, we appreciate you coming forward with your presentation. And I may have been presumptuous with my question because the Senate still got to sign off on that on these proposals, but I've got confidence we can work with them. But
well, we're going to encourage them to just support you.
Okay. Thank you, President McFadden. Appreciate you being here today and all you do.
Thank you.
Next on our program today is Morehead State University. So, President Morgan, please come forward, and everyone introduce yourself, and then we will swear you in.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. While we queue up the slides, my name is Jay Morgan, president of Morehead State University, and to my left is Dr. Carol Christian, who is the director of our Craft Academy, which you'll hear about in a little bit, and to my left is Kim Oatman, who is our assistant vice president for facilities and operations and really our chief engineer. So,
okay. Everyone, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed to your present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the committee, both in person and virtual this morning. We appreciate your time and your support of listening to some of the needs and successes of our university system all across Kentucky. Mr. Chairman, the request of you as chair and the committee this morning is to discuss a little bit about, and I'm not sure if we're showing on the slides down front, so. While they're working on getting the slides queued up, and I want to make sure our individual representatives in the virtual audience can see these. The request of the committee this morning was to discuss a little bit about the university's capital project request, our highest request. Number two, to talk a little bit about the asset preservation needs of the university. They model much of what my predecessor relayed to you as well. And then also a brief overview of our Craft Academy and Dr. Christian's success there. As a 20-second overview, really, of our master plan, just to lead us into some of the discussions and presentation around capital project request and also asset preservation request, we have modeled our master plan for our facilities really after a very simple 3 R's. Number one, we want to repair and take very good care of the assets of the Commonwealth. Our existing campus facilities, much like Dr. McFadden and EKU and the other universities, we have a variety of needs there that have built up in deferred maintenance over time. Number two, Mr. Chairman and committee, we also have undertook over about the past 4 years, we have raised almost 10 buildings, and we have sold off about 150 acres, about 145 to be exact, and then another 3 acre plot of land, so roughly 150 acres. And our goal here is to streamline our facilities and to make sure that we're investing our dollars, our critical dollars, into buildings that we want to keep and not maintaining buildings that we don't necessarily need. And also, too, and you'll hear in just a minute, a very high need for replacement of our STEM facilities. To start, Mr. Chairman, our number one capital project request is a request to the General Assembly to construct a new science and engineering building. This is a $98 million request, and to tell you a little bit about it, our current facility right now, and I'll show you a picture in a couple of minutes, was built in 1937, and you'll see it on the next slide. Should we be lucky enough to be funded for a building like this, we believe we have the land already ready, so there's no land acquisition cost. So we believe that from that perspective, that reduces some cost on us. Likewise, the rendering that you see on the screen today is a rendering. We have not been presumptuous and started architectural plans of any type, but the architecture that you see on the picture today really mimics the architecture of our general campus. And Representative McCool and Representative Tipton, you've been on our campus many times. You've seen the general architecture of Gothic collegiate or collegiate Gothic style of architecture. Red brick with a little bit of sandstone that blends nicely into the mountains. So this is probably not an actual picture of a building, but nevertheless, I wanted to provide you with something to see what it might look like. Very simple in design, and we want to maximize the space because we have to eventually move our students out of this 1937 building. From our count, and again, this is a very rough count, we have the oldest science building among the post-secondary ed institutions in Kentucky. Many of the other ones, by virtue of just our online research, have been built in the past 20 to 25 years. We're going past our third renovation. So we've renovated the renovation of the original. It's been a beautiful old building, but I underline the word old. And we believe our students would benefit by moving forward with a brand new science and engineering building. Backing that up really has been a very transformative measure at Morehead State, where our number of students in STEM plus H programs over the past decade have increased 50, 60, 70%. So we have seen a dramatic swing from a lot of reasons on servicing STEM students and STEM plus health. So we believe that a STEM plus H or STEM engineering building going forth is our way forward. Moving very briefly to asset preservation, and the story's probably the same if you have heard from other institutions and are likely to hear in the succeeding weeks. We have roofs, HVAC systems that have served the campus well. A number of our buildings were built in the 60s and 70s, 80s, so you can calculate that time span, 30, 40 years, and it's time for roofs, it's time for HVAC equipment. Steam tunnels need repair. We have a number of electrical and mechanical systems that could use a gentle upgrade. Water systems, we produce much of our own water at Morehead State, so we have a number of things we need to work on there. Building facades that have cracks in them, and I could give you a list, much like the other institutions, that would be several pages long. Within that request, Mr. Chairman, is something I briefly mentioned to you and in some of our conversations, is really also presenting this in a lens of not only how we can use these potential dollars of allocation on academic buildings, but how can we use them to upgrade our residence halls. At Morehead State University, we own 100% of our residence hall stock. Much of it was built in the 60s and 70s. We do have some built in the 30s and 40s. But many of those halls at this present time have the same needs that you see on the screen here. And one of the requests that I'd like to briefly mention to you this morning is consideration of some clarifying language, potentially in a conference committee or a budget bill, as we spoke, Chairman Tipton. We believe at this point in time that should dollars be allocated for our general academic buildings, what we call education in general buildings, general services buildings, that we could use these allocated dollars to fix the asset preservation deferred maintenance needs. Where we also believe that there's a little bit of a gray area, and we could use maybe a little bit of transparency here, we would like to use any potential dollars, some of the potential dollars, to also focus on our residential hall stock. We own 100% of our residence halls. We manage 100% of our residence halls, and with roughly 2,800 or 2,900 students living on our campus, these buildings have much of the same need as other general service and academic buildings do as well. So in working with our general counsel and others, we believe there's an advantage to having clarifying language, possibly in the budget bill, again, full transparency, to say that any asset preservation dollars could be used for our education and general buildings, but also for state-owned and operated residential facilities, i.e. the residential halls that many of our public regional universities own and operate. Now, in saying that, if the funds were appropriated, we could probably move the funds around within our system to use for the residential halls, but we believe there's more transparency with auditors and with any legalese to make sure that there's full transparency that we would like to use these funds to repair some of our issues in our residential hall stock. The last item, Mr. Chairman, is a little bit of one of our blue chip programs that many of you are familiar with and have seen some of the successes probably coming out of many of the counties that you represent, and that's our Craft Academy for Excellence in Science and Mathematics. It is a jewel to our campus, and as you know, it's a residential dual credit academy where a student can come and live and learn just like a college student does on our campus in a residential hall for 2 years, their junior and senior year, so they complete the last 2 years of high school and roughly the first 2 years of their college education. I can't think of a better way to invest in young individuals transitioning from K-12 to post-secondary education than the investment in the Craft Academy and the sister academy at WKU as well, the Gatton Academy. We accept at Morehead State about 74 students each fall class for a total of 148. That number is had a little bit of a retention hit in the past year or two because of COVID. We've had a couple of students who have gone home, but nevertheless very successful. This May will mark our 6th graduating class, so we have exhibited success over the prior years. It's funded with about $3.4 million of mandated program funds from the General Assembly, and we're very thankful for that. And these students are very high performers. They average about a 30 ACT, and the GPAs are much better than my GPA was when I went to high school and college as well. These students live and learn on our campus, but they also matriculate and are involved in very critical internships in the STEM plus H fields in Kentucky, and you'll find them scattered across companies, governmental agencies, and a variety of other areas all through Kentucky and even outside Kentucky. We have students who intern at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA, and many other places. They also then, many of them matriculate on after their 4-year program is completed to graduate schools in Kentucky and beyond in engineering, health and science, and a number of other STEM plus H fields. And then, as you could probably see by the successful completion of this being the 6th graduating class, we now have students who are embedded in medical schools, dental schools, and a variety of other graduate programs who have graduated over the prior couple of years also. So much like the Gatton Academy, it's a wonderful way to invest in high-performing, very aspiring students who are going to be the future of our Commonwealth going forward in STEM plus H and really fuel our economy. The next slide is one just to give you a pictorial of the students who have been to the Craft Academy. You can see in the blue the students who have come to the Academy on our campus. They all do extremely well, and our Academy leans very heavily toward the eastern half of our state, is exhibited in the blue, and naturally our sister academy, the Gatton Academy, probably takes up much of the red that you see that would navigate to Western Kentucky University. So two great academies doing good work. And Mr. Chairman, many of our students come from very hard-hit coal counties in the eastern 22 counties that we serve within Kentucky. And some of you are very familiar with some of the economic hardship there. And this is a great way for students to rise above some of that and come and excel on our university campus. Speaking of the two great academies in Kentucky, the Craft Academy and the Gatton Academy, and Gatton Academy does great work as well, one of our goals and aspirations is to have the funding for the Craft Academy at Morehead State equalized to the funding of the Gatton Academy. We believe that they should be equalized in funding. Our current general fund appropriation is about $3.4 million, and the Gatton Academy is about $4.9 million. So as we look for growth and to expand our academy, our goal and aspirations hopefully someday is consideration by the General Assembly or others to allow us to have that additional $1.5 million of additional funding to equalize us to our sister academy in the western part of the state, which will also allow us to increase the number of students that we serve on our campus to equalize that of our sister academy in the west, which is about another 40 to 45 students. So we believe that after roughly 5 to 6 years of very successful classes that we could be ready for that additional growth. We believe that with just some minor modifications that we can shift some of our residential halls around to accommodate that growth, and we'd love to have that consideration going forward. Mr. Chairman, in ending this, and we'll certainly open it up for questions, I too, much like my predecessor presenting today, want to thank you and others and the full General Assembly for considering us for asset preservation. We're very supportive of Dr. Thompson and his request to fully fund the performance funding model. As you know, Morehead State University, being a little smaller campus, much like our sister in the far west, Murray State, oftentimes can be disadvantaged in funding models that have to do with volume. And speaking on behalf of Morehead State University, we're appreciative of any additional dollars that could be placed into the budget, particularly to get our university into the funding model where in this coming year and in the biennium we start to receive monies like some of the other schools are that are slated. We're also appreciative of the pension funds and some of those considerations, and as well as the asset preservation. So we have nothing but good things to say about working with you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee, and we'll open it for questions from here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate your presentation and all the fine work you're doing on behalf of your students at Morehead State University. One quick comment about the Craft Academy. Appreciate the opportunity to attend the graduation. I've had some constituents and families that I know who have had children who have graduated, so I appreciate that opportunity. Actually, one of my constituents who is a Craft Academy graduate is actually working over in the Capitol in the Senate. This time, working with him over there in the Senate. So he has continued to excel. On your comments you just made on performance-based funding, I believe in talking to CPE that in order to get to the equilibrium, their recommendation, I believe, was around $67 million year one, around $90 million in year two. Just to remind the members, a few years ago, we started having this question when we went into performance-based funding. We had seen large student growth numbers at NKU and WKU, so that's where a lot of this imbalance came from. So just to keep the members aware, I know that the House recommendation was $50 million in each year of the biennium. So we'll see what comes out of the Senate in the conference. On a lighter note, you mentioned elevators. There are a few elevators here in the Capitol and Capitol Annex that occasionally make strange noises. So
Yes, we have those too.
So hopefully in time we will be able to address that. We now have a question from Representative McCool.
Again, just make a comment, if I may, Mr. Chair. I want to again echo what I said earlier. Appreciate what you're doing, what you have done, and the future holds out for the students. What I heard most of your conversation about is what I really like to hear is the students' success and continuous success. And again, as another alumni of Morehead State as well. So I appreciate what you're doing, and please keep up the great work.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have a question or comment from Representative Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Mr. President, let me just say I feel of all of the universities outside of Kentucky State University, I basically feel connected to Morehead as well. And I say that because of the fact that you serve a different group of kind of kids, and I don't mean that in a negative way, is that you emphasize that many of your students come from Eastern Kentucky, of which their families are working very hard, and some are disabled, but they're trying to push their kids, like all parents. They want their kids to do better than what they did. And that university serves that purpose. That was the reason and the foundation by which it was created, to help uplift that region of the state. So I applaud what Morehead is doing. I also want to say with the academy, the Craft Academy, I hope that we are able to provide those additional spots, because if ever there was a time in which those spots need to be increased, this is the time. And so I salute you all in everything you have done for that university and for the university, considering where you are and the population that you have in terms of the economic disparity that is taking place in that region as a result of coal primarily, going in a different direction and not being able to employ more people. My question is this: as these kids are coming into the Craft Academy, the percentage of students, once they complete that, are they transitioning, most of them staying at the university, or how is that coming about for you all?
Good question, and thank you for your comments, Representative. Speaking of your question around the Craft Academy, and I'll let our expert, Dr. Christian, next to me chime in if I maybe steer off course, but we keep roughly, upon completion of the academy, about a third of the students at Morehead State University. That will ebb and flow over the years, obviously, but roughly a third, maybe 25%. Within that, the remainder of the students matriculate to a number of Kentucky schools, and I'm not for sure if it made it into your packet or not.
Well,
but
that's what I wanted to know. If
there was a little two-pager that we can get to you electronically that exhibits where these students who graduate from the academy matriculate to. Many of them wind up at the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville because of some of their interest in going on to professional schools or graduate schools there. We do have a number of students that also go to Vanderbilt, Ohio State.
That's a good school.
It
That's
is
where
a
I
good
went to
school.
school.
Some also
Ohio State.
The Ohio State. Some also, will go back home to Western Kentucky to go to school at WKU or Murray or elsewhere. So within that, the majority of them stay in Kentucky. Dr. Christian, I'll let you speak maybe on a statistic or two of how many matriculate further into post-secondary education. I know it's extremely high.
Thank you. To answer some of the things that you've asked about, in 5 years of graduating classes, we're proud to say that we have 100% of our students go on to college. Right. It takes 3 to 3.5 years for them to complete the undergraduate degree after they leave us. That is consistent with Gatton. And in our years since the first class and second class were graduating, we have 98% of our students completing an undergraduate degree, and the others are still in progress. 75% of our students come from East Kentucky. And as our first classes are graduating and getting jobs, right now 75% of the data that we have, they are being employed in Kentucky or pursuing graduate degrees in Kentucky. We're proud to say in a short amount of time we've covered a lot of ground. We have 5 students in medical school, one's completed a law degree, 21 pursuing a degree in the space science industry. We have a Fulbright scholar who's now at Berkeley. But our tagline at Craft Academy has always been imagine, invent, and impact Kentucky and beyond. We encourage our students that as they graduate and go forth and do great things, to come back and be employed in Kentucky to impact the economic development and or whatever job you pursue, always keep Kentucky in your heart and come back. They could be in another state as Joe Craft is, but come back and they're still impacting Kentucky. And our kids are doing just that. So we appreciate the support that you give us. I appreciate the leadership of Dr. Morgan at Morehead State University, because the best is yet to be.
Yeah. Well, and that's great. And I do hope, and I know every kid has their own desires in terms of their future, but the investment, hopefully they will come back and give back to the area in which they were born and reared in. So, and I appreciate the service that you are providing to those young people and congratulate you on the work that is being done. Thank you all.
Thank you, Representative.
President Morgan, I didn't ask you to come prepared, but I'm confident you'll be able to answer this question. Could you elaborate a little bit about, people don't realize the impact aerospace and aeronautics have in Kentucky. Could you elaborate a little bit about your successes at Morehead and where that's going?
I'll be glad to, Mr. Chairman, and I'd love to have had some slides for you today about our space science program. Our space science program at Morehead State University is really one of 130 or 40 undergraduate programs that we have, but I oftentimes call it our blue chip program because it's known not only outside the Commonwealth, but it's also known outside the United States and internationally. So it's hard to believe that a program in northeastern Kentucky can be known around the world in the circles that it is. Right now we have roughly 200 to 300 space science students, and those come in a variety of different forms. Some come true space science, some come space systems engineering, some will come through a physics route, but as they all kind of feed through a lens of the space science theme, really we're funding this program with dollars that come from outside the state of Kentucky. Our university, as you know, behind the mountain that you see there just to the right, has a large satellite dish that was erected a couple of decades ago. Consequently, we're putting up our second dish as we speak now, and I'd love to have shown you a picture of that. The pedestal is in, the dish is on site. If I can get this gentleman next to me to get the supply chain moving again, we'll get the dish up and going soon. And that dish, that second dish, will allow us to almost double the number of contracts that we bring to the university. Now, mind you, these contracts don't come from down the road. They come from Florida, they come from Washington, D.C., they come from California and abroad. And those are dollars that are flowing into our universities and funding a very expensive program there. We do invest some of our university dollars into the program, some of the teaching aspects. But in addition to those, what will soon to be 2 satellite dishes behind our university, just to the right of the buildings in the picture, we also have been exercising contracts with NASA, Jet Propulsion Lab, and others to build a number of spacecraft, one of which is the Lunar Ice Cube. You actually see that if you've gotten one of your rural utility magazines lately. depending on what utility district you're in. We were featured in the front cover and also in Kentucky Living as well. The Lunar Ice Cube was scheduled to be launched about a month ago from Cape Canaveral in Florida. That has been pushed back by NASA now into mid-April. But nevertheless, Morehead State University constructed and built the Lunar Ice Cube, which is a spacecraft that will go and orbit the moon. We also collect data using the satellites that you see there, and we'll be vying for future contracts to build additional spacecraft going forward. The spin-off effect of that beyond our four corners of campus, and I've spoke a little bit about the dollars that flow to us and allow us to employ our students and give them valuable experience. The spin-off effect, Mr. Chairman and committee, is we're beginning to see private companies pop up around our area of the state. They hire our graduates, they hire a lot of our graduates, and they're very pleased with them. The Radiant Corporation is one that comes to mind very quickly. We send a lot of students to Space Tango in Lexington, and there are others as well. We also keep a number of them at the university. So as more and more companies begin to come in, as contracts flow from outside our state, those are economic development dollars. Just like a company would be coming to another part of the state, that are flowing in and